818-104-106. Carmel, Cantwell, my apologies. Thank you for holding on. Morning to you. How are you? It's an incredible story. I don't know what word to use from this. I mean, it's just almost hard to believe that you were reared, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you were brought up in the UK. Were you born there?
Yeah, I was born in the UK.
Okay.
I was born in London.
Okay, born in London, reared in London, grew up, married a Cork man. Did you then at that stage move to Cork?
No, we were married for about 10 years in London. We had 2 children in London, and then we decided to move to Cork.
Extraordinary. So you settled down, you moved, was the house near Besborough?
Well, we live in Rochestown, so we're only a 10-minute drive from Besborough. And coincidentally, my schools ended up. My kids went to school in St Anthony's, so that's very close to Blackrock, and they're all still members of the Blackrock Hurling Club. So my life has evolved around Blackrock.
Rochestown, Ballinlough, Blackrock, yeah. Then your mum came to visit at some stage.
She did on her first visit. Unbeknown to me, she'd made a phone call in advance, and she told the nuns that she was looking for information about her baby that died. And so when she came on her next visit to me, she had gone down there, unbeknown to me, and she came back this day in an absolute dreadful state. She collapsed on the kitchen floor and then ended up starting to tell the story. Sorry, apologise.
Okay, you got a dog issue there. So she went to Besborough, pre-appointment, met the nuns, came home to you then in Cork, in Rochestown, in an awful state, and collapsed on the kitchen floor. Is that what you said?
Yeah. She proceeded to tell me the story, that she had a baby. And I was like, oh, really? Is that all? Being brought up in London, having children out of wedlock didn't have the same stigma as Ireland. But then she went on to tell me the sad story of her baby dying. Okay, well,
let's just walk through that story. This was London 1960, is it?
My mum was in Besborough in 1960.
Where was she from herself? Was she originally an Irish girl?
Tipperary.
Tipperary.
Yeah, she's from Tipperary.
There you go. Okay.
She's actually, she was born out of wedlock herself, and she was brought up by her grandparents. So when she got pregnant herself, she knew the stigma, and she didn't tell anybody, and she got on a boat and went to London. But her fatal mistake was then going to confession, and the priest, with the Crusade of Rescue, sent her back.
How old was she?
17.
She went to confession and she told the priest. And the priest then got the wheels in motion against her wishes to send her back, is it?
Yeah, well, they put her in touch with the Crusader Rescued, which then, they assured her that everything was going to be fine. And I think she was taken in. But, they just put arranged everything and just sent her back. But she knew as soon as she got to the front gate, she said of Besborough, she knew that this was a formidable place, that it wasn't a place that she wanted to be.
It's a very sad and tragic option for a 17-year-old from Tipperary pregnant, knowing the stigma in Ireland of being 17, pregnant out of wedlock, and going to a big city like London. What did she hope to achieve by doing that?
I don't know. I suppose she just thought she'd have the opportunity of working and keeping her baby. She was green, I suppose. She didn't... turning up in London with no contacts, it probably was never going to end.
It's awfully, awfully sad. Thank God we don't have those days anymore. The memories are there, but it's awfully sad. So she arrives at Besborough. What happens? Somebody brings her by boat, or what was the case?
Yeah, I think in that time you could get a boat straight into Cork City, into the harbour. Yeah. And a black car picked her up and brought her down to Besborough, and that's where everything was taken from her. Her clothes, her shoes, her personal belongings, her money, her savings book, everything was taken away, and she was given an alternative name.
You heard all of this from her at the kitchen table after the Besborough visit, did you?
Yes, I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I had no idea that she'd had a baby before me.
Okay. Did she tell you about the pregnancy period, about the labour, about the birth?
She did eventually, but it took her a very long time because she really would get through one sentence and break down. So it's taken a long time to get the full story. I mean, this is 30 years ago, and we've been trying to find out information, and we've been campaigning since. And I mean, in recent years, we've been trying to get some truth about the burials of the babies of Besborough.
So what happened? What happened?
It upsets me to hear Maureen speak because it's not black and white. The map evidence is controversial. There's no expert that I've spoken to agrees with Maureen's interpretation of the map, and it really is upsetting to hear that people are not striving for the truth. Because I think these children really deserve their truth told, their story told. The map, you said you saw it, you had it in front of you.
Yeah.
Maureen believes that the blue circle is part of the burial ground, whereas all the experts have said that the burial ground refers to the graveyard in the Folly. But they also say that not all those children, hundreds of children, could be buried there.
But it does say on the Ordnance Survey map, copied as an Ordnance Survey map, children's burial ground.
Yes, but all the experts are saying it refers to the other area.
And what's buried in the other area?
Where the nuns' graveyard is, they started burying the nuns there in 1956.
I know, Carmel, but it's tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Nuns' burial ground is tiny.
I've spoken to witnesses that said that they have witnessed burials take place all over the grounds. They randomly were burying children anywhere. Why they had a designated children's burial ground, but I spoke to a gentleman that saw an open grave of babies on the other side of the grounds in 1947.
I have spoken with individuals who told me similar stories of babies going out in the little wooden boxes that would bring in fruit and vegetable, and they were buried in those little trays, and awful stories like that at the dead of night.
What I'm saying is it's not a truth to say that there is a mass children's burial ground. To say there's a children's burial ground implies that hundreds of children are buried in that one spot. But they're not. There is no proof. The commission didn't do the work they should have done. I spoke to the archaeologist involved with the commission, and he said that they could have done more. They could have established. There are still techniques out there. They could have gone through the rest of the grounds. The area that is controversial north of the Folly was, if you look at the aerial maps over the years, it was never touched. The road that was built snakes around it. So when the developers put in 2 trenches, and the archaeologist Neve Daly took a look through those 2 trenches, she didn't come across anything. Now, that's not to say that there wasn't anything there. There should be an independent investigation of that area and other areas.
It's just absolutely, because from your belief and others like you is that the whole area, the mass area itself, could have had babies buried ad hoc and at random. But can I just ask you, your mother gave birth to a son.
She did, yeah.
Did he survive?
A beautiful little boy. He was born a very healthy baby, but my mum was in labour for 3 days, and during that labour, the nun gave her an injection. For what it was, we don't know. She had a horrendous time there, horrendous labour. And the little baby was born, and he was fine. He was breastfeeding. He was thriving for the first 2 days, and on the 3rd day he became poorly. But at the same time, that area where my mum was injected became infected. A huge abscess had developed. And when the baby got sick, my mum overheard the two nuns were squabbling with each other, accusing the other one of not sterilising the needle.
Really?
So we think that the baby probably got the infection perhaps through breast milk. And he was taken off. They were separated. My mum would be taken to him a few times during the day. And she just watched. She said it was pathetic. She watched her little baby wither away. And she pleaded for him to be taken to hospital, and it took them 16 days to send him. He was another 19 days in hospital, and he died shy of 6 weeks old. But my mum was refused to go to hospital with him. So
she wanted to go with him to Finbar's, I imagine.
Yeah, she should have gone herself. She was so poorly. She collapsed herself. And
do you recall what your mother was told by the nuns when she asked to go with him, or what was wrong with him?
No, when she went back in 1994, when I moved here, based on my mother's inquiry, the nuns had sent an inquiry via the chaplaincy to St Finbar's Hospital, and they got a reply. And in that reply, the letter said that the child was buried in Cars Hill, that he'd been in the morgue for 11 days. But they did not give my mum that information in 94. Instead, they took her down to the nuns' graveyard. Sister Sarta patted her foot on the ground and said, "Your baby's buried here." At that time, they wouldn't even let my mother into the graveyard. She wasn't worthy enough to step into the graveyard.
To the nuns' graveyard. Your mother is your son is buried here. Subsequently, then finding out years later that it was a pauper's grave in Cars Hill.
The Commission's report, the burials report in 2019, we recognised my mother's story there, and they talked about a baby being buried in Cars Hill in December 1960. And of course, my brother was the only baby to die in Bessborough in 1960, in December 1960.
Was he christened? Was he christened?
Yes, all babies were christened usually within 1 or 2 days. So he would have been baptised in Bessborough, and we've got his baptismal certificate.
So that would carry his name then, yeah?
Yes, it carried his name. But there's no corroborating graveyard records with Cars Hill, so there's still a question mark. Did he actually make it up there? We don't know. I mean, we put a plaque in Bessborough for William in 2015. Initially, my mother was refused, but when the tomb story broke, we decided to place the plaque there, and that plaque is going to stay there because my mother. What does it
say? William is your brother's name. What does it say?
William. Yeah, she's put a little personal inscription on it. And we've placed it right there in the graveyard. You see it as soon as you go in. But she said Bessborough was the last place she saw her baby alive. So she, we've gone there for years to remember him.
Is your mum still alive?
She is, yes. She's trying to get an inquest now for William. We're 3 years down the road with it. We went to the Cork City coroner. He refused twice. We ended up getting a really good medical report from a renowned doctor in Scotland. And we took the coroner to the High Court, and the High Court gave us leave to take a case against the coroner. Wow. But then the coroner had decided that in 1960 it wasn't his jurisdiction, and he's now handed on the baton to the Cork Southern coroner.
So it's ongoing then, is what you're saying to me. 64 years later, following the birth and the death of your brother William, because this is still ongoing.
The expert says that William couldn't have died. He couldn't have been diagnosed with what he died of, what it says on his death certificate. You would have needed modern day equipment.
What was his cause of death and the death certificate?
It says renal abscess septicemia. But we're maintaining that the infection he got was caused by the neglect of the nuns. You have to act quickly when a baby gets sick. And if they had acted and given him medical care straight away, an antibiotic, I'm told, could have saved his life and saved my mother.
But that is septicemia. It's like sepsis, isn't it? It's like an infection.
Yeah, but specifically renal access septicemia is very hard to diagnose without, CT scans, MRI.
And what did your mother strive for in later life now? What would she like to happen? What does she hope will happen?
All she's ever wanted, and we thought that this would end with the commission, that some accountability and acknowledgement that her baby needn't have died. That he was a healthy baby. He was in the care of the nuns, the state. The state were paying a stipend for them to be there. There were inspectors coming in. She never had one. No one ever looked at her. No antenatal care. She saw the doctor at the very end of her stay that lanced the abscess that she had. She left Desperate in an absolute terrible state. The clothes were hanging off her. They took her back to London the way she came, and she just remembered she was suicidal, walking the streets of London with the Christmas lights shining. And the next 2 years were fraught with suicide attempts, 6 months spell in a psychiatric hospital. Just really horrendous, the effects and the trauma that she had. She could never, even to this day, she cannot get over the death of her baby and the way that she was treated. And perhaps if they had given her that information, that even that he was buried in Cars Hill in 94, she would have had 30 years to come to terms with that.
I know. Oh, I know. You know something, for me, just when I think you've heard it all, and I've heard all of the stories and so many of them, along comes another one, and this is your mother's story to share. Everyone exclusively theirs.
In terms of Desperate now, we really think that this planning refusal is just for one small site. The majority of the grounds is owned by Estreview Enterprises, and they have 2 live planning applications that we're waiting to hear from. Mm-hmm. Maureen's group, CSSA, have actually engaged with that group, and they are actually promoting that development to go ahead. Which we're not. We're saying the whole site, it should be saved in memory of all those that died. As well as the 19,000 women and children that went through there and were separated through forced adoption.
I know.
There's so much loss there. It should really all be preserved. I think somehow we've got to show that we cared.
There was. Do you know what? When you look at the selling of babies to America, it's a form of trafficking. You can't put it any other way than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the donations every year, we're coming back from those families. Annually, we're sending back the donations to the nuns.
Okay. Listen, Carmel, can you stay in touch? Perhaps you will stay in touch in the coming weeks and months ahead. It would be good to hear from you if there are any updates.
Yes, certainly will.
Okay,
Thank
regards
you.
to you and to your mum. Thanks for taking the call, Carmel Cantwell, on the story of her mum and her brother who passed away soon after birth, William. Text 0868